So this is the fourth video in our series on the tune White Christmas. It's getting close to Christmas time. I thought it would be a good idea to tackle some of those Christmas standards. Interesting thing about White Christmas is it's my second favorite movie of all time with Bing Crosby and Rosemary Clooney. If you haven't seen it, you might want to check it out. We're definitely doing a very different version of White Christmas than Bing Crosby did. But that's the whole point of playing Christmas music jazz style, because it definitely stretches your imagination, allows you to improvise and do some pretty cool things. So in this video, we're going to look at some improvisational strategies for White Christmas. There's some methodology behind it and the thought process. I'm going to walk you through that. If you don't know the tune, it's basically I think you probably recognize that. The first three videos dealt with playing good chords underneath the melody notes. In this video, like I said, we're going to tackle some of the strategies that you want to go through for improvising. So the first one is you have to start thinking about the keys. And the first key that you'll see is the key of C, and then it jumps into the key of F for a few bars. And then it basically does a turnaround here, 3, 6, 2, 5 to 1. And we'll deal with that in a second. So the first part is basically in C. These are chords that were put in just for the melody. You don't need those in soloing. So basically stick on D minor 7th for a couple of bars and then go to G7 because the F sharp 13 is a passing chord. So that means it's fairly simple. For the key of C, here's your bebop scale. And for those of you that don't know the bebop scale, it's basically the regular major scale with flat 6 added as a passing note. Now why do that? Because it evens it out. Okay, so maybe we should just write that scale out. So the scale is basically this, and then that's your passing note. And of course, I'm just writing it in the bass clef for now. And then when you get to D minor, the passing note is F sharp in terms of the bebop scale. So D, E, F, F sharp, G, A, B, C. That's your scale. Then when you get to the G chord, it's the same scale. It's just a different starting note. So the F sharp is the passing note. So remember, we're talking about bebop scales. Okay, now the other thing you want to consider is while you're thinking about the bebop scale, also think about the chords themselves. So of course, when we're spelling a C chord, especially C major 7 or C6, so spell it in thirds or spell it in fourths. Okay, and the third thing that you want to think about, especially in a tune like this when it's major, is think about blues. So the blues scale. Okay, so those two bars, some kind of solo. So that was using a combination of blues and bebops and spelling the chords. Then we're jumping into the key of F momentarily. And again, I think you can use the same strategy there in terms of like bebop scale, whatever. But then when you get into this section, that's when the real fun begins, because now you have all these chords in a row. So this would be sharp 4, 7, 3, 6, 2, 5. Okay, so and I think it's a good idea when you see those to just spell the chords, because that's what gives those, or that section, its feel, its sound, you're moving around the chords, and that's really what jazz is all about, trying to kind of figure out how to play above a lot of chords in a row. So one of the things that you would do is use things like Stitz bits. I'm going to post a link up here to one tutorial about Stitz bits, because that can really come in handy when you're doing this kind of thing. So and there's a million things that you can do with that, again, just following the chords. And again, you know, if you put some passing notes in between those as well. And I'm really trying with my fingers just to sort of spell chords, and it doesn't always land underneath the fingers when you're thinking about it, but when you're soloing, it just becomes automatic. So that's the most fun in the tune, is basically that 4, 7, 3, 6, 2, 5, 1. That's definitely, again, it'll challenge you, but it'll also get you to start thinking about, well, how do you actually play solos over multiple chords like that? So let's take it back to the beginning and let's do a little bit of the other things like scales, chords, and blues leading into that 4, 7, 3, 6, 2, 5, 1. So from the beginning. Try another pass. So again, I mean, it's not great soloing yet because we're not really throwing melodies in on top of that. So let's try to think about all of that and then think about little melodies at the same time. So. hope that all makes sense. I mean, if you have any questions about any specific part of that and you want to dive a little bit deeper, it's like, Paul, how do you think about things in this context? I've had people ask me questions about how my mind works in terms of like fingering and things like that. I'm not even thinking about that. Fingering is one of those things that comes as a result of knowing good fingering for scales and knowing good fingering for chords and knowing good fingering for blues. So fingering is secondary to the understanding of how the chords and the scales and everything fits together. Fingering, you don't even think about that. You're thinking about melodies and making good soloing out of what's in front of you. Okay, any other questions, like I say, post them below. And any comments you have, by the way, is good for the YouTube algorithm, so I thank you for that. And if you want to subscribe to the channel and ask me anything you like, I'll make a video about that too. Thanks for your time.